In the middle of the Karakum Desert, one of the most inhospitable places on Earth, there burns a fire that has never gone out. A fire that's been raging for over half a century. It glows like the mouth of an ancient beast, swallowing the desert night in orange light. From miles away, travelers say it looks alive, breathing, shifting, pulsing against the darkness. Locals call it the door to hell. No fences surround it, no guards keep people away. Just a giant pit, wide enough to swallow a jetliner, deep enough to disappear into. And from its depths, a storm of flames dances day and night, consuming invisible fuel from beneath the earth. It isn't a volcano, it isn't man-made fire, at least, not entirely. The story of this eternal blaze is unlike anything else on our planet. It begins with Soviet science, but it ends with mystery, because no one truly knows how it began, and no one has been able to stop it. This is not a tale of ancient curses or haunted tombs. This is a story of human ambition, colliding with nature's wrath, of what happens when science drills too deep and the Earth answers back. Welcome to Mystery Fact File, and tonight we descend into the door to hell. Picture this, the endless dunes of Turkmenistan, shimmering under a punishing sun. The Karakum Desert covers over 70% of the country, a sea of sand, wind, and silence. No trees, no rivers, just dry air, blistering heat, and the hum of the earth itself. But beneath that desolation lies something else, something powerful. A vast ocean of natural gas, trapped for millions of years. The same kind of gas that fuels cities, heats homes, powers nations. In the 1970s, this hidden resource was the new gold for the Soviet Union. The USSR was racing to uncover every ounce of energy it could find, and Turkmenistan's desert was a prime target. So, teams of Soviet geologists, engineers, and drillers set out to locate new gas fields across Central Asia. Among those expeditions was one in 1971. A small group of scientists led by a man named Vladimir Alexievich, operating deep in the Karakum near a remote settlement called Darvaza. Their goal? To tap into what they believed was a massive pocket of natural gas that could help fuel the Soviet industrial machine. They set up their rigs, assembled the drilling towers, and began boring into the earth, unaware that within days, they would open something they could never close again. Accounts of what happened next vary, and this is where the mystery begins. According to some, the ground beneath the drilling platform suddenly collapsed, swallowing machinery, vehicles, and perhaps even men. The desert floor gave way to a cavern of pressurized gas, and the entire rig vanished into the void. Others claim it wasn't a sinkhole, but an unexpected eruption, a violent blast of methane that sent flames shooting skyward, forcing the team to flee. The Soviets, always secretive about accidents, recorded little officially. Most reports were buried or lost. But what everyone agrees on is what came next. To prevent a catastrophic gas release, the engineers decided to ignite the escaping methane, a controlled burn. They believed the fire would consume itself within a few days, 3 days, maybe a week. That was over 50 years ago. The fire never went out. The pit became a permanent wound in the earth, a glowing crater over 70 meters wide and nearly 30 meters deep. At night, its light can be seen from miles away. Nomads use it to navigate the desert. The air around it smells faintly of sulfur, metallic, sharp. Birds sometimes circle above it, confused by the heat currents. Insects drop into it and vanish instantly. Even camels refuse to approach too closely. Locals began to whisper that the pit was cursed, that it was a gateway, not to the underworld of myth, but to something unknown. They said it was as if the earth had opened its mouth to breathe fire. For decades, no one dared to go near it. Even today, Turkmenistan's government rarely allows outsiders to visit freely. The site is remote, isolated, and dangerous. Yet, despite its forbidding nature, the door to hell has become an unofficial wonder, a place that defies logic and endurance. It's strange, isn't it? We can trace the age of the stars, measure the heartbeat of distant galaxies, yet we can't fully explain how one hole in the desert continues to burn, decade after decade, consuming fuel that should have long run out. And maybe that's why this story still grips us. It's not just about fire, it's about curiosity and consequence. Every civilization has its door to hell, a place where human ambition meets forces beyond control. For the ancient Greeks, it was the volcanic mouth of Mount Etna. For medieval monks, it was Iceland's lava caves. And for modern humanity, it's this crater in Turkmenistan, a scar of flame that refuses to heal. Over the years, travelers have braved the desert to witness it firsthand. Explorers describe the approach like entering another world. The sand glows faintly orange hours before the crater even appears. Then suddenly, there it is. A giant pit glowing like molten gold, its walls shimmering with waves of heat. Stand too close, and your clothes dry instantly. The air is thick, heavy, filled with invisible gas. You can feel the fire's pulse through your boots. One traveler described it best. It's not just fire, it's alive. Scientists have tried to study the crater, to measure its depth, temperature, and gas composition. But getting close is perilous. The soil around the edge is unstable. The gases are toxic, and the heat can exceed 1,000 degrees Celsius. In 2013, a National Geographic explorer named George Kourounis became the first known person to descend into the crater. Wearing a heat-resistant suit and breathing apparatus, he climbed down into the inferno to collect soil samples and test for life. Against all odds, he found it. Tiny microbes living in the blazing soil. Creatures that somehow adapted to survive extreme heat and poisonous gas. Organisms that shouldn't exist, but do. Even in hell, life finds a way. So what really created this endless fire? Was it truly a man-made accident? Or something deeper, something ancient that's been waiting to reveal itself? Some geologists argue that the crater might have existed long before 1971, perhaps as a natural gas vent that the Soviets merely reignited. Others claim that Soviet maps show multiple smaller pits nearby, suggesting a chain of gas pockets beneath the desert, meaning the fire could spread unseen. But the truth is, no one knows for sure. The government of Turkmenistan has kept its geological data classified. No complete drilling records have ever been released. And that secrecy only fuels the mystery. What lies beneath the Karakum? Why does the fire still burn? And could it ever go out if we tried? The door to hell is real. But what it means, and that's still up for debate. In the next part, we'll journey deeper into the Soviet archives, the forgotten engineering records, and the eerie legends whispered by those who live closest to the flames. Because sometimes the truth isn't buried in science. It's buried in stories. The year was 1971. The Cold War was at its height, a global chess game of ideology, power, and resources. The Soviet Union wasn't just competing in space or in politics, it was competing underground, in the race for energy. The USSR was hungry for natural gas, the clean fuel of the future. Its scientists and engineers fanned out across Central Asia, drilling deep into the Earth's crust to locate new deposits. In Moscow, the maps of Turkmenistan glowed with red circles, areas believed to hold immense reserves of methane and crude oil. The desert was vast, empty, and silent. To the Soviet planners, that made it perfect. No civilians, no eyes, no witnesses. And so, one expedition team was dispatched to a desolate patch of sand near a settlement called Darvaza. They brought with them geophysical equipment, drilling rigs, and optimism. But what they didn't bring was understanding. There are very few surviving records of what happened next. Soviet secrecy wasn't just policy, it was a culture. Failures were buried, disasters erased. What we do know comes from scattered witness accounts, later interviews, and the whispers of local nomads who saw the sky light up that year. According to one surviving engineer, the drilling team believed they'd struck a solid gas pocket. But when the drill reached a certain depth, the ground began to tremble. Within minutes, the earth beneath them collapsed. The entire drilling platform, the rig, equipment, even trucks, was swallowed by the sand. A black hole gaped where solid ground had been moments before. And from that hole came a sound, a deep, guttural roar. Gas, invisible and deadly, began pouring out. Methane, ethane, and other hydrocarbons hissed through the fissures. It smelled metallic and sharp. Animals nearby fled. The engineers knew immediately what it meant. If that gas spread into the air, it could suffocate the camp or ignite. So, the decision was made. To prevent an explosion, they would burn it off. A controlled fire, they called it. A standard procedure. They lit the match. What happened next was beyond anything they expected. The fire caught instantly, roaring upward like a volcano. The heat forced the men to retreat miles away. They watched, stunned, as the pit turned into a cauldron of fire. At first, they assumed it would burn for a few days, a week at most. But the days stretched into weeks, then months, then years. By the time the Soviet Union fell in 1991, the fire was still burning. No one remembered who had ordered the ignition. No one had kept the original data logs. And no one could turn it off. Imagine the sight: a blazing crater, 230 feet wide, 100 feet deep, belching fire into a black desert night. The sands around it glowed as if from an inner light. The air shimmered. Even the stars above seemed dimmer beside the pit's orange glare. To the scientists, it was an embarrassment, a failed operation turned freak of nature. To the locals, it became something else entirely. They began to call it Jahannam Darvaza, the gate to hell. In Turkmen folklore, fire has always held meaning. It purifies, but it also punishes. It gives life and takes it away. For generations, nomads had told stories of underground spirits, beings who controlled the earth's breath. To them, the sudden opening of a fiery pit wasn't an accident, it was a warning. Some said the Soviets had angered the desert spirits by drilling too deep. Others claimed the pit was a sign from God, a reminder that human greed would one day consume itself. The flames, they said, were the souls of those who disturbed the earth, trapped below, trying to escape. Of course, the Soviets dismissed these tales as superstition. But decades later, even modern scientists would admit the pit's behavior defies simple explanation. You see, methane doesn't burn forever. Under normal conditions, it should have depleted long ago. So, where does the fuel come from? Some researchers believe the ground beneath the crater sits atop a vast natural gas reservoir, continuously feeding the flames through hidden fissures. Others suspect the collapse created a kind of chimney effect, drawing gas upward from deeper layers of rock. In other words, the fire might be refueling itself. If that's true, then the door to hell isn't just a man-made disaster. It's a natural machine, one that feeds on the planet itself. In the 1980s, a few Soviet geologists tried to return to the site. Their reports, now partially declassified, describe temperatures exceeding 1,000 days and gas emissions strong enough to melt nearby metal instruments. They took core samples from the surrounding soil, each one heavily contaminated with carbon and sulfur residues. One note simply reads, "Unstable, alive." Alive. That word keeps appearing in field notes and travel journals written decades apart. Travelers describe the fire as breathing. Scientists call it dynamic combustion. But the experience is the same. It behaves like a living thing. Flames rise and fall in rhythmic bursts. Gas pockets open and close in cycles. At night, the sound it makes resembles a low heartbeat. Some swear they've heard a whisper. For decades, no one dared to descend into the pit. It was too hot, too unpredictable. But in 2013, one man did what no one before him had attempted. He went inside. His name was George Kourounis, a Canadian explorer and storm chaser. He'd survived hurricanes, volcanoes, and lightning strikes, but even he admitted nothing compared to what awaited in the door to hell. Dressed in a fireproof suit lined with aluminum and breathing through an oxygen tank, he descended by rope into the inferno, his boots sinking into layers of glowing soil. The temperature near the bottom reached nearly 400 degrees. The air shimmered with heat. Tiny orange flames danced like spirits across the surface. It wasn't just fire. It was alive with motion, energy, and something else. Something ancient. Kourounis collected samples from the walls, clumps of baked clay and blackened rock. When those samples were analyzed in a lab, scientists discovered something astonishing. Microbial life. Microbes, living organisms that thrive in the presence of fire and toxic gas. They shouldn't exist. No oxygen, no water, and yet there they were. These extremophiles, as they're called, feed on methane and other hydrocarbons. They not only survive the inferno, they depend on it. That discovery changed everything. Because if life can exist in a place like this, burning, toxic, deadly, then it can exist anywhere, even on other planets. Mars, Titan, Europa. The door to hell had become more than a mystery. It was a window into the possibilities of life beyond Earth. It's strange, isn't it? A failed Soviet drilling site becomes a key to astrobiology. It makes you wonder how many accidents in human history were really discoveries in disguise. But beyond science, the mystery deepens. Because even after half a century, no one can say exactly how deep the crater goes. Ground-penetrating radar suggests it extends far below the visible cavity, perhaps into an entire network of underground tunnels. Some researchers think there are connected chambers, constantly feeding gas into the main pit. Others believe the fire has hollowed out a lung beneath the desert, a reservoir that breathes. And that could explain why the flames seem to pulse like a living creature. Then there are the strange accounts, the ones you don't find in science papers. Visitors claim to have heard faint metallic echoes rising from the crater, like the sound of chains or distant machinery. Others report seeing shadows moving along the edges of the fire, even when no one else was near. In 2004, a Turkmen film crew documenting the crater claimed that one of their cameras continued recording after being left unattended, capturing frames of a figure standing at the rim, and then disappearing in a burst of light. The footage was confiscated by local authorities. It's never been released. Skeptics say these are tricks of the heat, illusions caused by distortion and exhaustion. Maybe they're right, or maybe the pit does more than burn gas. Maybe it burns memory. After all, everything that falls into it vanishes. Animals, equipment, even sound. It's said that if you shout into the pit, the echo doesn't come back. It's absorbed, as if the fire itself is listening. Over the years, Turkmenistan's government has tried several times to close the crater. In 2010, President Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedov ordered scientists to find a way to extinguish the flames. But when they tried to seal the gas flow, the ground began to collapse again. The project was abandoned. In 2022, he proposed once more to put out the fire, citing environmental concerns and wasted gas reserves. Yet, as of today, the pit still burns, untouched, defiant, eternal. Some say it's unstoppable. Others whisper it's untouchable. One desert guide put it simply: it will close when it wants to close. 50 years of fire. 50 years of unanswered questions. What began as a scientific expedition has become a modern legend, one that blurs the line between reason and the unknown. The door to hell is real, but what it represents might be something far deeper than flame. It's the embodiment of human curiosity, our desire to dig, to know, to conquer, and the Earth's reminder that some doors should never be opened.